Already 7 years ago, it was a big surprise to everyone when Donald Trump raced into the White House. It was crazy. It was curious. It was impossible. It felt as though an invisible hand was clearing the path for him to win the American presidency. But more than any of this, it is Donald Trump's positive stance on the right to pray in schools, his intention to place Bibles back in those schools as well, his support for traditional marriage, and his stance on pro-life that draws evangelical Christians. And it comes back to something he said in 2016, Christianity will have power. Well, that's not all, but to get the rest of the message and his warning to all Christians, we invite you to watch this video to the end. 8 years ago, as Trump began his 2016 campaign, he gave a speech at a small Christian university in rural Iowa, in which he made a straightforward promise. Christianity is under siege, he said, before adding, Christianity will have power. If I'm there, you're going to have plenty of power. You don't need anybody else. You're going to have somebody representing you very, very well. Remember that. A simple certain statement like that sells. It is unambiguous, it is clear, it is targeted to one group. It is a promise he has repeated, and arguably, a promise he has kept. He delivered on the #1 issue for many evangelicals by making abortion more difficult across America. He did this by nominating Supreme Court justices who later helped overturn the constitutional right to have an abortion. He moved the U.S. Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem, again playing to evangelical support for Israel. He understood the evangelical wish list, and he got it done. It makes you wonder, if you're someone as important as Trump stood up and made a promise that your brand of Christianity will have power, what would you do? Of course, Trump's promise has been targeted at a narrow group of people, largely straight, white, married, conservative evangelical Christians, but these make up 20% of the U.S. electorate. These Christians say they are protecting traditional Christian values from being eroded by the secularization of the Western world. Most of them don't like Donald Trump, but they understand him. Their relationship with him is transactional. They vote, and he makes the country more to their liking. They feel safe with Trump in charge because their highly conservative Christian values will be protected. The problem is many of us, especially those of us outside the U.S., hear what the president says, and we see what he tweets, but we don't often see what he does. When paying attention to hear prominent Christians, mostly charismatic evangelical leaders prophesying about his presidency, it feels uneasy. There was a feeling among these leaders that God was putting Trump into the White House for a reason, that somehow he would be the catalyst for a large-scale turning back to God. Trump was compared to Jehu, a rogue element in ancient Israel, who, maybe because he was unconventional and rough around the edges, helped bring an end to the house of the wicked king Ahab. He was also compared to Cyrus, who paved the way for the people of Israel to go back to their land at the end of the exile, a figure of deliverance. Despite being an unbelieving Persian ruler from another religion, Cyrus is anointed in Isaiah 44:45 as God's shepherd to help deliver ancient Israel from Babylonian captivity. This concept of an imperfect vessel used for greater good has often been applied to Trump. Another appealing trait his supporters love is certainty. Trump is certain about many things, and certainty sells. He takes the truth as he sees it and he calls it out, candidly and bluntly. He doesn't care who gets offended. You may disagree with him, but you are never in doubt as to what he thinks. 1 in 3 Americans call themselves evangelical Christians, and 60% of the Republican electorate are evangelicals. This is a nationalist Christian movement that blends together patriotism, politics, and of course God. It is powerful and profoundly influential, to an extent those of us outside the U.S. find hard to grasp. Many Christians don't personally like Trump, but their relationship with him is transactional. They vote for him, and he shapes the country to their liking. They hold their nose and vote for policy over character. One of Trump's quotes was, "Our country needs a savior right now, and our country has a savior, and that's not me. That's somebody much higher up than me, much higher up." The life and death and resurrection of Jesus Christ forever changed the world. Many Christians don't personally like Trump, but their relationship with him is transactional. They vote for him, and he shapes the country to their liking. They hold their nose and vote for policy over character. Other Christians, of course, love the man himself. They see Trump's enemies as God's enemies. In their eyes, he can do no wrong, and he really was robbed of the 2020 election. These extremist opinions tend to get press coverage. Trump has said he has a great relationship with God. This claim has been met with skepticism from many leading evangelicals, most especially in the USA. In an opinion piece for the New York Times, the head of the Southern Baptist Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission, Russell Moore, said it was illogical for evangelicals to support Trump. He cited, among other things, Trump's divorces, pro-abortion stance, and lack of a moral compass as serious causes for concern. Trump recently released a video where he can be seen holding a Bible and saying, "I really appreciate the support given to me by the evangelicals. Every poll says how well I'm doing with them. My mother gave me this Bible many years ago. I want to thank the evangelicals. I will never let you down." When the Bible is used as a prop in a campaign video designed to get more votes, Christians should bristle, and most Christians across the world may indeed laugh at Trump. But some of our brothers and sisters appear to rate him. Rather than bristling at Trump's words and actions, Franklin Graham has gone on record as agreeing with Trump's policy to ban Muslims from entering the U.S. until the war with Islam is over. Of all the comments he's made about his faith, Donald Trump's answer to the question of whether he asked God for forgiveness is most revealing. Trump said, "I like to be good. I don't like to have to ask for forgiveness. And I am good. I don't do a lot of things that are bad." Contrary to what Trump thinks, Christians do not believe that a good relationship with God equals never having to ask for forgiveness. We believe the exact opposite of that. "I am good. I don't do a lot of things that are bad" is not a Christian statement. A good relationship with God means admitting our faults and repenting. Jesus didn't come for people who think they've got it all figured out. He came for sinners who know they need a Savior. In all the hours of interviews, speeches, and statements that Trump has made in his lifetime, has he ever even hinted that as a sinner in need of a Savior? If Trump does not believe he is a sinner in need of a Savior, he has missed the core of Christian belief. According to Paul, a Christian not only says that Jesus is Lord, but they also believe it in their hearts. Nobody but God alone knows what is inside Donald Trump's heart. But it's unsurprising that given his recent comments, everyone from the Pope to the person in the pew is raising serious concerns about Trump's Christian credentials. There's no point going over Trump's litany of misdemeanors. We've heard about them. Barack Obama provided a concise summary when he said Trump was uniquely unqualified. And yet over 80% of evangelical Christians supported Trump. You may have been in church when someone did that talk on how most biblical leaders would fail the test of what we expect in a leader, and yet they were used by God. David was an adulterer, Paul was a persecutor, Mark was a quitter, etc. This is not about drawing a line of comparison between Trump and Moses, or saying that Trump is like Moses, but saying that people can change. God can change people. If we don't believe that, then we don't have a gospel. This gospel often requires us to hold in balance conflicting ideas. Paul tells us in Romans 13:1 to give our due to the governing authorities of this world. That includes affording them respect. Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. But at the same time, Paul tells us to not be taken in by what we see around us. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve God's will. We can do this not by ignoring what Trump did in the past, but by expecting him to do better in the future. His misdemeanors need to stay in the past. He needs to rein in his temperamental offensive remarks for the future. In short, Trump now needs to govern in a different way to how he campaigned. As the global news organization Politico recently remarked, two things can be said of Trump. Firstly, his personal and public life seems to make a mockery of Christian evangelical ideals. Secondly, he is the person who has delivered more policy victories for Christian evangelicals than any other president.